And a good Wednesday morning, Quad Cities. It is Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025, and 9 o'clock on the dot. You know what that means. It is time for Ask Andrew Live. And I'm your host, Meteorologist Andrew Stutzke. I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Lots and lots to talk about, a brand new one, ready and hot and ready to serve for you. We've got some rain that we're going to be tracking in coming up in just a moment. Plus, we're also going to be talking about the summertime rainfall that we experienced. Lots and lots to chat about, so thanks for coming in. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not sure how this all works, I'll give you a quick rundown. So for the next 30 minutes, I am yours. I am here to answer your weather questions. We'll usually start with a brief little weather chat right off here at the top, where we'll talk about what's going on weather-wise now. We'll go over the couple of questions that I answered in more detail on GMQC this week, both of which had to do with what happened this past summer. And also, toward the end here, last 15 minutes, we'll give you a question, or a chance rather, you can submit your question and I'll answer it live here on the air. So you can text that question to the number at the bottom of your screen. It's 309-304-0888, 309-304-0888, and once again, 309-304-0888. Easy to remember. Again, keep it weather related. Just want to keep things flowing here nicely here on this Wednesday morning. I hope everyone had a fantastic week. Labor Day, oh my goodness, the weather this year was stunningly beautiful the whole weekend, really. So I hope you were able to take advantage of that. We had one last summer-like day yesterday. Today is when we start to shift into a autumn pattern. Things going to be getting a little bit cooler. And already we're starting to see the clouds come in. I'm going to send you here to our Clinton live camera right along the Mississippi River. Thick cloud cover. And I would not be surprised if we see some raindrops falling in Clinton here very shortly. There are some showers that are starting to move through, and I'll take you to radar here, start tracking some of those. We've been seeing them move in from the northwest. They started out in northern Iowa. Now we're starting to see some of that rain enter some of our hometowns. There you see what's going on to the north here on Savannah. Clinton also starting to see some of that as well. And eventually we're going to get this into the Quad Cities too. There you see Eldridge about to get wet. All of this pushing off to the south and to the southeast. How far south does this extend to the southwest? Well, it actually is a pretty solid line, and this is what Future Track was showing us for much of the scenario with this coming through. It looks like actually some heavier downpours will eventually be working in south of Interstate 80. So a lot of us will start to get wet here very shortly, and even a rumble of thunder will be possible with this activity too. It's all ahead of a really strong cold front, and it's strong in that it's got some really cool air behind it, but it's not strong enough and doesn't have the right dynamics in that we're going to be tracking severe weather. That will not be happening today. Rather, we're just going to be seeing these rain showers and an occasional rumble of thunder or two. And I'll take you through Future Track here, which will show you the timing of all of this. And we are still expecting the next few hours here to be quite wet, at least through lunchtime. I think once we get to 2-3 o'clock this afternoon, that's when things will begin to quiet down and we'll see the bulk of this rain move off to the south and to the east. Now, we're going to have a lot of clouds to get through yet, so I will keep the rest of the day mostly cloudy once the rain comes to an end. Even early this evening, mostly cloudy, but late tonight, we'll start to see some of that cooler air push in, and with the clearing coming in, that means as we start the day tomorrow, we're going to be waking up to temperatures in the 40s, so it would be a good idea to locate the jackets and have those ready to go. You'll not need them, not for tomorrow morning, but you'll actually need them for the next several days because we've got some very chilly air that's going to stick around not just Thursday, but also into Friday, and we're going to have some really cool mornings heading into the upcoming weekend as well. In fact, I'm just going to straight right to the 8-day, and I'll show you those overnight temperatures. Notice as we get into tomorrow morning, yep, we're going to see some 50s and 40s, but more widespread 40s as we get into Saturday, also into Sunday. It won't be until probably next Tuesday that we're going to start to see some of those warmer overnight low temperatures come in as we get daytime highs back into the 80s. But also notice too, none of these overnight low temperatures have anything to do with any frosted freeze conditions. I know that was a big thing on social media this past weekend, as we had a lot of posts from some of the more clickbait Facebook pages claiming that we were going to see a big frost, early frost, potentially this weekend or early next. I just don't see that. I see overnight lows in the 50s and 40s, and that's about it. So green thumbers, if you've still got a garden going, if you've still got some of those flowering plants you want to enjoy for a few more weeks, we're fine. No concern about frost here in the near term. And we typically don't deal with frost until we get into about the mid part of October. So we have quite a ways to go. If you're curious, here's the 14-day, by the way, just to show you that summer is not done yet. We still are going to be well into the 80s for most of next week. It's also going to be pretty dry around here too. So if you're not ready to close the pool, you're not ready to put the boat in its slip for the winter quite yet, for the colder season, you still got plenty of time that you can get out and enjoy some of this really nice warm weather that's going to be coming through. So our questions that we had this week, some really good ones. And I love these kind of questions that I got because I call them data digging questions, where I get to go back into some really intense data and do some digging, do some compiling, do some charting. We'll start off with the question that we had from this morning for GMQC. That came from Matt in Kewanee. He was wanting to know what were some of the heavier rainfall totals, not just for the immediate Quad Cities, but for some of our other hometowns. Which areas picked up the most rain this summer? And yes, Kewanee actually did make the list of some of those heavier totals. So check this out. These were the wettest cities in our region this summer. And remember, summer officially ended on September 1st. We're now in meteorological fall. So we're talking about June 1st to August 31st. We'll start with the Iowa side first. Taking the top spot right here, Muscatine. My goodness, nearly 2 feet of rain is what you saw this summer. And for reference, here's the normal at the bottom of your screen. About 12.7 to 13.2 inches is an average summer's worth of rainfall for a lot of our hometowns. This definitely exceeded that by leaps and bounds. Now, we didn't break any records, at least in terms of summertime rainfall. Some of you may have broken a daily record here and there with rain, but these are not record-breaking numbers, but they certainly are really impressive. DeWitt kind of coming in second place here with about 18 inches, 17 and a half roughly here in about Clinton, and then Maquoketa 17 there, 16 Davenport, 16 in Bettendorf. What about the Illinois side? Check this out. Galva at 17 inches, just about there in Galena. Sterling Rock Falls at 16 and a half roughly. Kewanee, yep, you made the list there, also coming in at a little bit more than 16 and a half. 15.3 inches in Princeton, and Galesburg coming in just shy of 15 inches worth of rain. So again, none of this broke a record, but it definitely was more rain than we had in an average summer here in the Quad Cities. But it's important to keep these numbers in mind because I want to show you this statistic from this past summer. And I'm going to see if our director, Matt, can get rid of the lower third for me so you can see kind of the biggest thing I want to highlight here. Thanks, Matt. There you see the average temperature was 74.3 degrees. It was only half a degree warmer than normal. And a lot of you have said to me, this summer has felt so hot, much hotter than normal. It has not been the temperature that's been hot. It's been the humidity. The bottom of your screen there, it was the 4th most humid summer on record in the Quad Cities. We've been keeping those records since the early 1900s. What's interesting is when I went back and looked at those records, the top 10, 5 of those were since 2010. So all of them have been within the last decade or two that we've seen these high levels of humidity. Corn sweat has a lot to do with that, and so does plentiful rainfall. If you keep up on rainfall, you're going to keep up on humidity. That's exactly what we did this summer. It was the 49th wettest summer on record in the Quad Cities, even with about half an inch more than we typically see. We still made it into the top 50 in terms of rainfall. That was impressive. The other question that we had on Monday, and it goes back to what we're talking about right now. Have we seen hotter days, more hotter days this summer? than average. So we'll dive into this graph, and I'll give you a second to let your eyes kind of point out some things here. So we'll start with, what are we looking at? Well, what I'm showing you right now is this red line right here would be your average high temperature for every single day since the beginning of this year, since January 1st, 2025. What's in blue with all these little jagged lines here, this is your actual high temperature that was observed every single day. And this goes through about August 25th is when I made this graphic. So what you're looking at is how much time did we spend below the red line for cooler than normal days versus how much time did we spend above the red line for warmer than normal days. And honestly, if you put this all into perspective, it wasn't that much warmer than normal. In fact, for the year to date so far, by late August, at least year to date from late August, our temperatures have only been about 0.2 of a degree warmer versus average. Also, if you look at this statistic on the other side of me right here, how many days have been above normal versus how many days have been below normal temperature-wise? They're pretty much even. We've had 110 days warmer than average and 112 days cooler than average. What you're not seeing there is there's 15 days in between where it was neither above nor cooler than average. So, in terms of have we had more hotter days this summer? Certainly no. I think it's been a pretty average summer by all indications. The only exception being is that darn humidity has been so high. That is why it has felt so hot for most of this summer. So it's not the temperature. As we always say in the summer here in the Midwest, it's not the heat, it's the humidity that really digs in and really makes things feel extra, extra miserable. Another thing I want to kind of point out here too, we're about ready to go on quite a ride, not only temperature-wise, but we're quickly losing some daylight this time of year. September actually has the most daylight loss out of any month here in the Quad Cities. Well, what does that mean? It means our sunsets are about to get a lot earlier and our sunrises are going to be getting a lot later until we hit the end of daylight saving time, which will not be until early November. So check this out. September 1st, we see a sunset of right about 7:30, just a little bit after that. But by the end of this month, that sunset will be well before 7 o'clock. We're talking about 6:45-ish for a sunset by the end of this month. That's a huge, huge loss in daylight. And I'll give you another perspective on this too. I'll show you the whole year's worth of daylight, how this all trends. So as of today, we have 13 hours and 58 minutes worth of daylight. That is quickly going to continue to decline here as we race to October and November. It's early November when we will see the end of daylight saving time. So that's when we're going to be falling back. We'll set the clocks back an hour. We'll lose that hour, if you will. Or excuse me, that's when we'll gain that hour or so. So we're going to start to see, that change, of course, in the next few months. Then things will begin to kind of even out as we get into November, later November and into December. But we're certainly losing the daylight, and you're going to see that really quickly here in the next several weeks. Those sunsets are going to be getting a lot earlier here in the Quad Cities. Lastly, before we start taking some of your questions, something we're going to have to watch when it comes to the weather pattern next week. And it's going to be early next week. We actually have some tropical development that has taken place in the eastern Pacific Ocean. We have a hurricane that is currently ravaging that region. It's not reached land yet, but it is expected to make landfall in the next couple of days. That is Hurricane Lorena. You can see it here churning off of the western half of the coast there of Mexico. Right now it's a Category 1 storm, but what happens with these storm systems, especially the ones that are this far north, they can get caught up in our weather pattern here in the United States, and as they make their path to the northeast, sometimes we can see some of the moisture, some of the clouds associated with that reach right here in our direction. So here's the stats right now. It's a Category 1 with winds of 75 miles an hour. And notice the direction. It's moving northwest. But eventually, in the next couple of days, we're going to see that storm system make a northeast turn. It will get into Mexico. And then from there, it will start moving into parts of Texas, Oklahoma, perhaps as far north as to the Ohio-Tennessee Valley as we go into early next week. The remnants anyway, that being the moisture, not necessarily the the storm itself, but the leftover moisture will begin streaming in that direction. And that could mean rainfall chances for us as we get into Monday, perhaps Tuesday of next week. But right now I'm going to keep it dry, thinking that most of that storm system will be shunted further to the south and keep us out of those clouds and out of those raindrops. But if that changes over the weekend, we'll certainly let you know as we continue to evolve and update the forecast here. But it looks like we've got some good questions coming in, and now would be a good time to pause on the weather chat and see if we can answer some of these. Well, welcome in again. If this is your first time, we're so glad to have you, and we hope you come back every week here because this is what we do every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. So text those questions, 309-304-0888. Alec and the folks on our wonderful digital team will help get those to me right here in the studio. So, first question. Right off the bat, and this is one of my favorites, and I kind of packed in some graphics to talk about this a little bit. This is from Laura. Is it predicted that we will have a harsh winter this year? Thank you. I wouldn't say it's going to be a harsh winter, but I will say if you are a snow lover, if you are a lover of cold weather, I think this is going to be a pretty promising winter for you. We talked a bit about this last week during Ask Andrew Live about this La Nina pattern that was going to be setting up. And if you missed last week, I'll go over that really quickly again here, what La Nina is, what it means for our upcoming winter and also for the fall too. So this is the model probability of seeing La Nina conditions, El Nino conditions, and then neither, what we call neutral. So La Nina probability is in blue. These blue bars right here that you see kind of scattered about. Neutral would be in the dark gray, which is right here. And then El Nino, which barely shows up because we just got out of an El Nino and it's likely not going to return for some time, is in red. So what we're looking at for that possible La Nina development, those cooler waters off the coast of South America and the eastern Pacific Ocean, is right here as we go into next month, October, November, December, and then likely carrying over a little bit into January. That's when we're looking at that development of a La Nina. And the typical impact of a La Nina winter is usually you're going to end up getting more snow. You're going to end up getting these colder blasts of air that come in. And I'm going to pull up this graphic here that will show the overall temperature pattern and the overall jet stream pattern as we go into a La Nina, so you can see how that's all going to work out. And we have some past history too that tells us what La Ninas do here in the Quad Cities. We have a ton of weather data that we can go over too. That kind of gives me a good idea of what's going to happen for this winter. So here, let's pull up the La Nina pattern. This is the jet stream pattern. So this is on average what happens with this type of a situation in place. So usually you have what's called a blocking area of high pressure here in the west coast, right off the west coast. What that will oftentimes do is it will lead to warmer sea surface temperatures of the water here. In fact, we're already seeing much, much warmer waters here in the Pacific off the west coast. So that is already establishing itself. No surprise. But what that high pressure does is it sends the jet stream further to the north, to the west of us, and then it dives down right to the south of us. So that's the track of where the storms are going to go for the most part this incoming winter. Two things. You're going to be more vulnerable to this colder air coming down with each one of those passing storms. And you can get some wicked cold with that too, no doubt. Some very, very cold days. But you're also near that storm track. So you're going to pick up moisture that makes its way onshore here on the northwest coast. That moisture runs into the cold air, and guess what it produces? As that jet stream kind of opens up here around our area, it produces snow. So you're in a favorable pattern to see above normal snowfall. You're also in a favorable pattern to see colder than normal temperatures. Now, NOAA will not release the winter outlook until we get to the middle part of October. The fall outlook is already out. We are expecting warmer than normal conditions to continue, but we'll see what NOAA has to say about the upcoming winter when we get to mid-October. So that's the jet stream pattern. Here's the data on what a weak La Nina means for the upcoming winter. About 2.3 degrees colder on average in the Quad Cities when we've got a weak La Nina, which is what we're expecting. 75% of those winters have had that. 58% of weak La Nina winters in the Quad Cities have averaged about 6 inches more snowfall than normal. And then also some of them have given us more rain than normal as well. And yes, you can still get rain in the winter. We do track that oftentimes as well. So hopefully that helps. I do think snow lovers, again, cold lovers, this is going to be a good winter for you based on everything that I'm seeing this early in the game. We'll get the official outlook from NOAA coming up in the middle of October. And of course, once that's released, we'll be all over it. You can read the whole breakdown that I'll put up on WQAD.com once that is released, a little bit more than a month from now. Great question, Laura. Good morning, Riley. Good to have you along. Jason in Bettendorf, what's going on with Tropical Storm Lorena and could it impact us? Hopefully I just answered your question. That storm is expected to move to the northeast. We could see some clouds from that, perhaps a stray shower as we go into early next week. Marcus from Moline. Good morning, Marcus. I know who this is. How could artificial intelligence change the future of meteorology and forecasting? I don't think it's necessarily going to replace my job or any job as a meteorologist, but what AI is going to help us do, in fact, it's already helping us do this, is it's going to help us process a lot of information more quickly. Going back, in fact, we're already doing this with severe weather forecasts. We're already doing AI, computer-generated forecasts when it comes to long-range severe weather. What that AI is doing is it's going back in past history to other severe weather events, comparing those events, that event's ingredients, to a possible event in the near future and saying, okay, do we have a match here? Are we seeing a similar setup in the weather pattern? Or is this something that isn't likely going to pan out? And we're already able to see these forecasts. In fact, I've shown a couple on the air in the last few months here that go out a month at a time, kind of highlighting where we think the greater coverage of severe weather would be. I'm going to do a quick search in my library to see if I can pull up an example. I may not have one in there immediately, but that is something we're going to have to look at. Here's a throwback. I do have one in there, but it's going to have a lot of old logos on it. So we're going to call this, Throwback Wednesday. So what you're looking at here, these are different AI generated models. And what they're doing is, again, they're going back to past events. They're able to kind of pinpoint, okay, where according to these ingredients have we seen large hail? And then they put that on a map. It's the same thing with wind, tornadoes, and then overall the severe risk as well. So this is a very kind of crude representation of that model here right now. Obviously, the hotter the colors, as you can see on the scale here on the right-hand side of your screen, from the teens to the 90s, the better probability you're going to have of seeing severe weather. You can see it's very blocky in appearance. These colors, they look like big squares kind of lumped together. As we go through time, and these AI models become more powerful, these colors will become a lot more smooth and a lot more focused on certain areas. But yeah, learning from the past to forecast today, that is what AI is going to help us do. It's so time consuming for us as humans to sit in front of a computer and try and analyze all this stuff when we can have AI do it for us and do it 100,000 times more quickly with way more data than we could ever imagine doing ourselves as meteorologists. So that will not replace us in any way. You still need someone there to interpret the data and, of course, forecast, but it's just another little tool in our toolbox that we have that we can use to better understand what we should be forecasting and help us in that way too. Great question, Marcus. Looking forward to seeing you later today. We have Billy, our good friend from Clinton. This is what we have from him this morning. A couple of questions. One, with the passage of this cold front, will we deal with Canadian wildfire smoke? And now with the La Nina watch in effect, how could it enhance the threat of severe weather during our second season? Thank you for your time and hoping you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful day as well, Billy. All right, let's tackle the first question, and that deals with the wildfire smoke. Yes, this front that is coming through today, it will indeed start bringing in some wildfire smoke later this afternoon, and we'll likely see some of that hang around tomorrow and into Friday. I've been kind of watching the air quality, though, throughout the region. I haven't seen anything too crazy like what we saw a few weeks ago. Per se, where we saw really, really poor air quality. The sun was kind of obscured all day long. I just don't see that right now. A lot of that is still farther to the north here. I'm going to see if I can pull up a couple of these maps here for us that'll help tell the story when it comes to what that smoke is doing. So for now, while I get this, there's a live look into your backyard, Billy, right there in Clinton, showing that, yeah, you've still got some rain that's falling there right now. Let's see if I can find the air quality here. It's always kind of fun to do this on the fly. Is it going to work? It should work. Let's go to air quality first, and I'll pull this up, and we'll zoom it out. You can see, obviously, there's no problems here right now. But what we want to do is we want to look at the source region, or where our air mass is going to be coming from behind this front, and look at that. You're starting to see some of those areas of moderate to unhealthy for some, so that lower air quality, and also follow the arrows where this is going to be coming from. So once our winds switch to the north, yeah, it looks like we could potentially be dealing with some air quality issues, perhaps as early as later this evening into tomorrow and Friday. So we're going to keep a very close eye on that. In terms of the severe weather for the second, what we call second severe weather season, which we're going to be getting into here in the next month here as we go through fall. This is what Billy's talking about, that second severe weather season. Our primary season is right here in the spring. During the March, April, and May, we get a little lull in the summer, and then we get this secondary little peak here in the fall. La Nina doesn't really tend to enhance severe weather this side of the season. What we are going to be watching is if we have a little bit of a weak La Nina left over next spring, that tends to enhance that spring severe weather season. So it's not so much on the front end that La Nina impacts severe weather, it's on the back end of La Nina where we typically see that spike up in severe weather. So Billy, you're onto something. That is something I will absolutely be watching as we go into next spring. If La Nina hangs around, next spring could potentially be rocking and rolling around here in our region when it comes to severe weather. Absolutely something we're going to have to watch. Let's see, we have Kendra in Davenport asking, why is much of the country expected to have warmer than normal fall season? All has to go back to what I was just talking about with that developing La Nina. We had a lot of that warm air sitting over much of the eastern Pacific Ocean, and those water temperatures are quite warm. So we're expecting that warm air to really continue to stream across much of the country here for the next several weeks, and that will likely lead to this warmer than normal fall that we are expecting to see. Tim from Moline asks, saw that we may have a mild season through November with it showing for a wet winter here. Can this play a big role in how long our winter will be, being cold and snowy here with it still being mild temperatures in November? So what we're going to see is we're likely going to see that delayed winter onset like we usually do, but we'll probably be playing catch up really quick. It's likely going to be one of those seasons where we're going to be snowless in November like we usually are. Most of December will probably be snowless as well. It will likely backload itself into January and February when the real cold will come in, and that's when the majority of the snow will come in too. Because I want to remind you, what we're seeing with our winter season here in the Quad Cities is it's getting the squeeze play. Fall is getting longer. It's extending itself more into November and parts of December, while spring is actually starting a little bit earlier. So we've got winter sandwiched in between. Spring is doing this. Fall is doing this. It just keeps getting squeezed. In winter, our season just gets shorter and shorter. So that's likely what we'll see again this upcoming season, is you're going to have to wait a little bit for the cold and the snow. All right, we have a joke from Riley, and then I think we're all caught up, which is perfect timing because we're about to hit the bottom half of the hour here. So Riley, our joke of the day, what did the hurricane say to the tornado? You spin me right around, baby, right around. That's a good song, by the way, too. I actually had that on the radio yesterday, so it's funny that you mentioned that. Thanks, Riley, for the joke. We always appreciate it here in the morning. And Linnell, a good morning to you, and Elizabeth there in Joe Davis County. I bet you are starting to get some rain that is falling. So that's the perfect timing to go ahead and end this episode here of Ask Andrew Live. I want to thank you all for joining me this morning. As always, it's a treat to have you along. And plus, it's been fun to be in a different space here for a bit. We're in our Studio B while we get Studio A all tidied up and ready to go for its big debut in a couple of weeks. I have a feeling you guys are going to absolutely love it. We've been practicing, rehearsing this week on the new set just to make sure we're all ready to go. And so far, It looks really, really cool. And again, we're excited to show that off to you in just a couple of weeks' time. For now, you guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Grab those umbrellas if you're heading out this afternoon. Going to get a little wet and a little cool weather, so make sure you have your jackets ready to go for those Friday night football games. I'll see you later this morning coming up on GMQC at 11. Have a great day.